glorious and beautiful judge panel, but not so beautiful because they have nothing better to do on a Sunday. We have Amelia, with Moyat, with Noel, and Kelvin with me winging. On government side, we have HWC 3 Friends with Lee Ka Hao, Wang Peijuan, and Ong Yuza. On government bench, on opposition bench, we have team very, very old and rusty. We have Ruben as leader of opposition, Habib as his deputy, and Tim as the opposition whip. Without further ado, on the motion that this House believes that NATO should actively aid Ukraine in its defense of the Crimea region, I'd now like to invite the Prime Minister Lee Ka Hao to speak on the motion that stands in his name.
As being the line side opposition's team name, right? We think the line is trying to sell about peace team in Ukraine is just as big. Because it's the greatest moral hypocrisy where you try to pass a bill to authorize deploy our troops to help Ukraine. But we see they're trying to deploy our whole troops in Ukraine by deploying crack troops, elite troops, firstly in Crimea. We think it's an excuse for full-out war. That is why it's imperative for us to intervene. Now, we think why intervene? There are two main justifications for this. The first justification is why it's good in itself, in the sense that protecting and respecting sovereignty is pretty much a principle for international cooperation, because we need to respect each other, respect each other's space in order for there to be further cooperation. So in terms of sovereignty, we think it's necessary to respect it in order for countries to operate. But more importantly, we think the second justification is one of the consequentialist one. People are dying because of inaction by the international community. We think there's overwhelming moral imperative by the international community in accordance to international law, like responsibility to protect, even within NATO itself, like alliance strategic concept signed in Washington 1997, conflict prevention and crisis management. We think it's imperative to intervene now before the crisis continues to escalate. So what exactly is our policy for this motion? We like to advocate a no-fly zone. This is really quite similar to that of Kosovo or Libya. So we're not talking about things like bombings within the 1999 Kosovan war, right? When there was 11-week bombing. This is not such a grand-scale intervention where collateral damage is half, where it's inevitable. We understand that because of the might that NATO has now, they are able to use intelligence and minimize the damage done. Just like what they have done in Kosovo, just like what they have done in Libya. So our policy is two-pronged. Firstly, a stern warning, stern review. We think this might work because, like, Obama tried it in Syria and disarmed chemical weapons. We think possibly it will. But given the current crisis, right, most likely it won't work. This is when military action will happen. No-fly zone first, enforced by technology, given that EU and NATO always have it. More importantly, because air superiority is such an important concept, right? We think it's important. It's essentially winning wars, because without air superiority, people cannot penetrate further. That is when we would then insert forces to deter further aggression from Russia. That is when we can ensure that the minimal collateral damage, because there are forces within Ukraine itself, without resulting to civilian harm, because intelligence agencies by NATO, by satellite can give them this kind of direction. We think that's minimal civilian harm. No, thank you, sir. That is why that's basically our two-pronged policy. Firstly, diplomacy, stern warning. Secondly, then military action, but with minimal collateral damage because of the kind of things we want to do. So thank you, sir. We think we're not jumping a gun. We will clarify that, well, there's concrete harm currently. We're not trying to advocate some preemptive action. And that's why there's a case for prosecution through the international community. So we're moving on very quickly to the question of why NATO. I think NATO has the vested interest to do this and has the capability to do this. Over 70% of world military spending from US, UK, France, Germany, Italy, Albania, Croatia. Basically, we know that they have a hell lot of resources, essentially. Therefore, giving them the capability to do this. We think this is also then results in an idea of probability, right? Because they have experience and ability to do so. Through the Kosovan War, through the Bosnian War, Afghan, Iraq, or even in Somalia, in ensuring territorial sovereignty. We think there's precedents already for this, and they surely are more experienced than everyone else to do this because they are established practice in the international community. This is important to note, that we cannot rely on the UNSC or UN to do this, because when Russia is a key power, a P5 within the UNSC, we cannot rely on them to pass a bill to one to stop that, right? We think realistically there are no alternatives in the status quo, because we cannot rely on unilateral military action. But when we're going to look at chart from AU, African Union, EU, France, no, this is not going to happen, right? The only critical mass that counts will be NATO, because they have the best consolidation, they have the best critical mass for ability to act. That is why we are proposing that NATO is the best organ to do this. I'll tell you a moment, sir. More importantly, ladies and gentlemen, we think NATO represents a collective interest rather than bilateral interest. That is why individuals or countries will not necessarily want to intervene, right? in a separate country because of overwhelming costs involved. At least then, as a collective blanket, it becomes a collective effort so countries can join in a peacekeeping process that's far more palatable than intervention within their own country, like say Singapore invading Malaysia. Because we see the large scale invading nations like this, we do not want to associate one single country. We think NATO affords them a security blanket into this political will and help people coordinate efforts. Before I move on, yes, sir.
It's sport that this debate is going nowhere with this speech. In the last 3 NATO interventions in Tajikistan, Iran, and Afghanistan, the final deciding vote was with the US. Can you tell me why would the US want to do this when it actually intends to deepen relationships via the G8 summit and it has no political affiliation with any form of secession with Crimea?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we think US always intervene whenever there's overwhelming moral harm. That is why it can threaten Syria with, drone strikes when Syria is using chemical weapons against people. We think there's an overwhelming moral imperative. This overwhelms any idea of a G8 summit, right, ladies and gentlemen? All these long-term economic harms of the members can come later. In fact, I'll explain to you why these considerations will ensure that NATO will act accountably rather than act responsibly within its countries. Political abuse unlikely happen, and constructive action is more likely. Why so? One of them is in terms of long-term economic interests between countries, right? Because we do not want to spoil international relations or bombard or hurt Russia too much. We just want to get out of this country. That's our first policy, right? Scram, otherwise we will fight back and get you out of the country. We think it's very clear, right? This plus overwhelming disincentive for us to continue. We think that's not necessarily for your own international relations because there's a moral imperative. There's so many principles that are abiding by. We think when we respect these principles, it increases solidarity and cooperation, allows countries work better together, where countries feel safe, where countries have the security to do so. But more importantly, we think there are many other factors that disincentivize people from acting responsibly. We see media, film journalism, many cases, like they act as checks and balances against human rights abuses. Or furthermore, in Syria, Geneva Convention has received available attention with regards to how we act on humanitarian international law in terms of conflict. That's why we think abuses are extremely minimal. Furthermore, the NGOs around Transparency International, Human Rights Watch, basically all eyes on you. We do not believe that anyone will act irresponsibly in times of crisis. And our policy is very clear in the sense that we do not want collateral damage. As is possible, as seen from successes in Libya, we've seen Gaddafi tormenting his own country with imposed a no-fly zone without much or without significant civilian harm. We think this is certainly possible. We think more importantly, there's imperative, right? Because in the short run, when stability is escalating, when tensions are escalating, without action, people are suffering. That is when it's important for us to act now. We say that it will help because entering the no-fly zone, is the first step to deter countries from progressing. Because as security is the precondition for infantry troops to continue progressing in one country, that is established military knowledge. We think that is why it's so important for all these reasons. Side with government.
Thank you, Prime Minister, for that speech. Now to begin the case on the negative bench, I invite Ruben, the Leader of Opposition, to speak against the motion. Here you go.
Yeah.
The problem with Kahal is that he focused the bulk of his speech on the feasibility of no-fly zone and blindly assumes that this sort of action is legitimate. He ignores the demands of the Crimean people to succeed. And it's naive to assume that this sort of intervention wouldn't incentivize the retaliatory response from Russia and a return to Cold War relations. It's funny that he wants to use NATO to defend rights. But NATO has always sided with the party fighting for freedom. In this instance, it is siding with the side that wants to oppress and artificially retain people who do not want to be there. My case is going to deal with everything that he said in his speech. First off, there's no moral imperative for an interference and intervention of NATO because, for the first reason, nothing tangible has actually ever occurred. What we have is a state of saber rattling and brinksmanship with no actual conflict. That is why he sent in, or rather Putin sent in elite forces rather than sending in his military on Mars. Why? Because he wants to intimidate Ukraine and force them into a state where they will allow Crimea as a whole to secede, right? That they do not want to escalate the conflict on any level. But even if conflict were to break out, we need to address this paradigm in order for debate to progress. NATO has no political legitimacy to intervene in a fight that is in the interest of the Crimean people, Ukraine, and even the EU. What is the situation right now? Moscow has authorized the use of military within Ukraine in order to protect the lives of Russians within Crimea. While Russia has had a military presence in Crimea since the formation of the Soviet Union, this activation of the military is merely a defensive measure, as I mentioned earlier. Let's then assume that war might break out. They might escalate to full-blown conflict. What then is the legitimate cause of action? Obviously, we must assume that the Ukrainian military would lose absent external help, otherwise there's no value to intervention or establishment of a no-fly zone. Given that that is the case, what will occur is that Russia will liberate Crimea, assuming that NATO doesn't intervene, and provide it with unfettered autonomy, the same thing that they did with South Ossetia in Georgia, right? So why then should we allow for that course of action to take place? Because if you look at the social political history of Crimea, secession is inevitable. Why? First, for the most part of 200 years, Crimea has been a territory of Russia, right? Has been under the mandate of Moscow. 83% of Crimeans identify themselves as ethnic Russians and speak Russian as their mother tongue. In fact, they view the handing over of authority of Crimea to Kiev in 1947 as something that was illegitimate, and it was a historical wrong that was done to them. They should have always been under the mandate of Russia. That is why Crimea is the political stronghold of Viktor Yanukovych, right? And the only reason he was able to beat Timoshenko in the 2010 elections was because he was aligned to Russia. And the people in Crimea voted overwhelmingly for him, giving him the majority in the 2010 elections, right? What ultimately would occur under their paradigm is massive escalation of this problem under their model, right? But more than that, after Yanukovych was ousted, Crimea decided to elect its own leaders, and it's attempting to secede, right? That is why for the first time they've had an election after like about 10 years or something like that. Prior to that, all the leaders was appointed by Kiev alone, right? Moreover, their leaders have stated a very clear intention to secede and have called on Russia to help them with this particular goal, right? The conclusion of all of this is that it is illegitimate for NATO or any international body to intervene in this fight for freedom, to be liberated from a country that they have had no political, cultural, or historical affiliation to. That is why we think it's completely illegitimate to artificially impose the remaining of Crimea with regards to Ukraine. But before I go on, yes, one pure.
So tell me, what does NATO have to do with Yugoslavia or Bosnia?
What does NATO have to do? I don't know, you tell me that in your debate. More than that, we argue that any sort of conflict would never escalate to a great level. There would never be a disproportionate use of force. It will be solely for the interest of Crimeans and the Russian people living right there. Why is this so? Putin would never want to escalate the conflict to a level where there's indiscriminate use of force, or he would never want to invade the rest of Russia. Why? Because Putin is trying to reform his image as a global leader, as one that is sane, that ultimately uses force or uses his power in a restrained manner. That is why he was in fact a pivotal figure in the resolution of the Syrian conflict with regards to chemical weapons. He wants to establish himself as a world leader capable of using restraint as and when it is needed. That is why we think it is never in his interest, in his political interest or the interest of Russia, to escalate the conflict beyond what is legitimate and what is fair. That is why he used that sort of justification within the upper house in Moscow, right? The only reason we are intervening is to save Russian lives, is to prevent the escalation of a conflict. But what's best for Ukraine in this particular scenario. We think that any sort of NATO intervention ultimately cause far greater problems for Ukraine. Is to allow the peaceful secession of Crimea without further conflict. And NATO, and let's assume that war breaks out again, right? NATO intervenes in this long drawn-out war, and Ukraine regains control of Crimea. Now you have forcefully suppressed a minority that wants liberation, and you have suppressed these people through bloodshed. You are likely to continue the conflict anyway. Furthermore, any attempt for political reform within the Ukraine government will be halted. Why? The end goal for the Ukraine government and the Ukraine people is to align itself with the EU and remove any remnants, pro-Yanukovych remnants, from the government. Why is this so, right? Because ultimately, what will happen under their paradigm is the forceful retention of Crimea will allow that region to be a stronghold for pro-Yanukovych forces as a whole, right? Ultimately, this would result in the continued use of conflict and violence within that particular region, because ultimately it will result in the sort of conflict which we want to prevent, right? So that's why it's far more strategic for Ukraine to leave NATO out of this, to allow Crimea to succeed. For the fight for freedom, we're very proud to oppose.
I'm the leader of opposition to that speech. Continue the case in the affirmative bench. I'd like to invite the Deputy Prime Minister. Here.
It is a lie that there is no violence happening in Crimea right now. It is a lie that Russia is doing nothing in Crimea that causes damage to human lives, and it's a lie that Russia is not invading Ukrainian sovereignty. What we want in the short term right now is that we don't want Ukrainians or Crimeans to suffer, to be invaded by a foreign invader. We just want to get, we want NATO, we are going to use NATO as a vehicle to get Russia out, so that Ukraine can progress on its own, can decide its own fate by holding democratic elections. If Crimea wants to secede, it should hold its own democratic elections and not have Russia or any foreign power intervene in its affairs of another country. So a few rebuttals for today. Firstly, does NATO have a moral imperative to intervene in Crimea? That opposition lies to us that there is no actual conflict happening in Crimea right now. There is merely intimidation on the part of Russia, that Putin won't be incentivized to escalate the conflict beyond what is legitimate and fair. There are a few issues with this. Right? Firstly, we already know it is the truth that there's never legitimate or fair for another country to invade a country where, without reason or without any logical reason, unless to declare war. It's so obvious that Putin is obviously having notions, having designs on obtaining Crimea back to Russia. We think that this is completely illegitimate action on his part, that it is time for external body, such as, and the best external body is NATO, to step in to stop Crimean lives from being lost from this invasion. Because when Ukraine invades Crimea, no thank you sir, it is obvious that Crimean troops have to respond to this attack. And right now, the Ukrainian authorities have lost contact with the Crimean troops. No one actually knows what exactly is going on. Crimean lives, Crimean troops are being lost. The thing is, NATO has contrary to what side opposition says, has the political legitimacy right now to step in. They only intervene where there is moral harm done to another party, illegal moral harm, where illegal invasion, such as the case of Bosnia and Yugoslavia, where NATO successfully ended the Yugoslav wars in 1995 through their action on the part of NATO. We think that this can be replicated in Crimea, but ultimately we want Crimean officers to decide on their own fate without foreign intervention. Yes, sir.
The debate has to fall beyond this violence, and therefore NATO is the most neutral party to be. We've already explained to you extensively, which I think you need to deal with. The political will of people within these regions are far more important than exactly what you think is best.
Thank you, sir. This directly deals with my second rebuttal on Crimea, on the needs of the Crimean people. You tell us that Crimea demands to secede, that Russia is liberating Crimea, that somehow Russia is because of the Russian-speaking majority that there's a need to liberate Crimea. This is by the same logic. Why not? Why not Malaysia is able to invade? Why not China invade Singapore then? Because Singapore is a Chinese-speaking majority, and so China definitely has the right to invade Singapore because it is what is the will of, because we have an ethnic majority here.
Sure.
That somehow that Crimea cannot decide its own policy, because let's say if they want to secede to Russia, they can, but they must say so. We cannot allow Russia to unilaterally try to influence Crimea, try to take Crimea and say that, oh, that's because what the people want. We don't necessarily care. What people want now is not the problem, but the problem now is illegitimate suppression of Russia in the Ukraine territory, in globally recognized Ukrainian territory. And we want a peaceful transition, right? But right now, what is happening is not a peaceful transition. The best way to achieve a peaceful transition is in the part of NATO, and NATO comes in to stop Russia, to kick Russia out, and that's why we can have democratic elections to decide what the Crimean people actually want. Such as the Manila and Moro front in the Philippines, where they want to succeed as well, but they don't do it through they don't do it by invading their own territory. They do it by trying to have democratic elections in Philippines. So the thing is that no one will suffer in our policy, but in your policy, people continue to suffer in your country. So this is continuing on to my substantive on how we want to promote long-term peaceful international relations. So NATO being in Crimea, it would deter, other than sending a clear message to Russia that it's not just because it's a large country, you can't do anything it wants, that it can't invade a smaller country's sovereignty just because it has political might, because NATO will be there to deter Russia, as in to deter also potential nations from unilateral invasion, to deter Russia from reclaiming its Soviet Union back. We don't think this aggressiveness is very healthy in the world today. And in the long run, we want to actively deter Russia from doing that, or any other future nation, in fact. So we want to also protect and protect smaller nations and retain the fact that they are secure, that they are they don't have to fear larger nations, that NATO is there to provide security for them, to protect their sovereignty and as well as a buffer to their own troops. This is like a macro version of crime and punishment, right, where all these principles are at stake, where larger countries can also similarly be punished or be deterred from committing crimes instead of invading smaller countries. We see that this is a case of respecting each other. When you respect each other, you respect each other's space. So it stabilizes the international community, where we improve the international relations by setting up precedents, a very healthy precedent for more peaceful world. And because NATO is the only one that can do it, the only one that is incentive, the only one with the time, the swift action capable, and the only one with the right to do so, the other nations shouldn't step in, shouldn't invade to stop Russia, because that will just cause a proxy war happening in Crimea. And we say that by NATO intervening in Crimea will achieve positive outcomes where they can decide their own fate and stop the suffering of the people right now. Thank you.
Thank the Deputy Prime Minister for that speech. To continue the case in the opposition bench, I'd like to invite Habib, the Deputy Leader of Opposition.
With great power comes great responsibility. This obviously applies very well to Russia, especially with the fact that we have the military personnel the size of Singapore. Come on, guys. Anyways, rebuttals. A few rebuttals and 3 argumentations I want to talk about later on. 5 rebuttals to be exact. The last one I'll give you my argumentation later. First and foremost, let's look at this idea of Ukraine should be able to decide its future and assist Crimea to leave. This is what they expect. And obviously, everyone in this room wants a nice reconciliation, and people talk about it, they leave. Unfortunately, the situation isn't such. The characterization that Ruben has talked about earlier already painted a picture and shows you the reality that Ukraine and people who are in charge in Kiev do not have any political will or any want to help Crimea leave, and neither do they have any intention to assist them to leave. The reason for this is because the people who are in power there, within the interim government there, and the supporters of Tymoshenko do not like Viktor Yanukovych, and Yanukov's stronghold is in Crimea. So most likely, what's going to happen is that they're going to annex Crimea, take away the autonomous status that we have, and then further screw them over in any possible way. So we don't think this particular idea is going to fly. Secondly, the idea with regards to the illegitimate invasion of another state. Let's get facts clear out of the way. Yeah? Russia is not illegitimately invading Crimea because Crimea has a pre-existing deal with the Russian government to ensure peacekeeping forces and to ensure security of that region. If in case the government of Kiev wanted to invade Crimea or take away their autonomous status. So the reality is, no thank you, the reality is as such that the Russians are there as bastions of protectors of the lives of Crimeans and not the villain that you want to paint them. It's easy because you're Russian, isn't it? Right? So the third thing, and to make that point, let me give you another example. Right? Sevastopol port is where the Russian military personnel and the port basically is Russian owned, and it is there for until 2042. That's the deal that we have in Crimea. So why would I mean, if Crimeans really did not like Russians, they probably wouldn't have this deal with Russia to begin with, and so they kind of like seals that argument. Thirdly is the idea of this language invasion, right? I promised them I'll be nice, so deal with this properly, right? This is how I'm going to deal with it. Oh yeah, they're ethnically Russian. That's why these Russians have a mandate of going there and protecting this individual. They speak Russian because they are ethnically Russian. So it's not an invasion. It is there to help these people. Okay? So this Chinese and Singapore doesn't make sense. Fourthly, they kept on telling us that NATO is the best, because the whole first speaker speech was about how NATO is the best individual entity that can go in and make sure that this happens. Classic invasion of Zimbabwe, forgetting that this is against Russia and Ukraine, right? So let's look at what happened. There is no innate political will within NATO to invade or to go into this particular region, precisely for the analysis that we gave earlier, that NATO does not want to lock horns with Russia, our world superpower. That's the same reason why they didn't enter the first place when Georgia and South Ossetia had an issue previously. You know why we know this? Because we're old and we remember old news, right? Lastly is the idea of deterrent against big nations, right? Let's deal with that with regards to what I have in my argumentation. Before that, quick viewers. Done? Fantastic. Let's go on to the first one. I'm doing well, guys. First one, extreme antagonism against Russia by the international community. I'm going to tell you why this is fine.
So Mexico is different because 58% of people voted to succeed out of their own country. Peaceful succession can happen. Why must you use Russia?
If you agree that peaceful succession can happen, then how the hell would you prove your case with NATO's intervention, which is also an argument. I'll help you there, okay? Thank you so much. Let's go on the first one. Extreme antagonism against Russia in the eyes of the international community. Let's look at what government side has done. They have, in one simple debate, vilified the character and assassinated the idea of what these Russians are doing. Just because Putin is a hard man to please, it doesn't necessarily mean that this person is a bad person, right? Why? Because let's look at the autonomy and the sovereignty of Crimea. Why is it bad for us to vilify Russia in this particular context? Number one, we say it's unfair. It's an unfair image and perception attached to Russia, especially when they are being put in a negative light because of historical exploits of the past. You can't put them in the same light anymore. The second thing is that Crimea wants to self-actualize and wants to have a state emancipation from Ukraine. their state, basically the international community now, is casting a dark shadow of doubt over Russian intentions as an aggressor, when in reality they are providing peace and security for that particular region. So what is happening in government side is that they're lying to you, not us lying to you. The reality is that Russia is there to protect this particular environment. Stop painting them as if they're bad people. Secondly, the consequences to the European Union, right? Two folds. Number one, let's talk about the political tension. It's a bit ironic. They want to use NATO to intervene in Ukraine and make Russia look bad, when Russians and Ukrainians and people who are from the Crimean region, who are military personnel, also are in the NATO, right? So it's a bit of an oxymoron there. So when it comes to political tensions, you have a reality where groups of individuals who have served in the NATO are going to see their counterparts say, hey, I'm going to shoot you. That doesn't make sense. So that political tensions between states is not going to gel well, especially in the EU and what they stand for, which is the second thing, right? The contradictory idea or approach that they're taking to the principles of EU that always resorts to negotiations. Let's look at the easy understanding. First is the concept negotiations is very important to EU. They have given no chance to them to this idea at all. Secondly, this is how EU views itself, that they are a group of individuals who are civilized and the rest of the world are against them. So if you have these kind of wars or these kinds of behavior happening within a civilized society, we don't think that represents what the image of EU should be about, and we don't think that's best for EU. And lastly is about the trade-offs. None of them obviously have read, thus they cannot even quote names. Yanukov, the interim minister, okay, yeah, and Tomoshenko need to sit down at a negotiation table and talk about the political indifferences they have. This policy doesn't allow any one of these leaders who are pro-Russian or anti-Russian to sit down and talk about anything of any one of these problems. That's only allowing for civil war, a full-out-blown competition, without realizing that there's a benefit to negotiation. And lastly, what will NATO intervention do to Crimea? They want their own borders, they want their sovereignty, they want their own government. NATO intervention makes this extremely hard to happen, and NATO's intervention is going to be the circumvention of this state achieving any form of emancipation. Thank you very much.
Thank the Deputy Leader of Opposition for that speech. Now to end the constructive part of the government bench, I'd like to invite the government speaker from THBT.
Ethnic lines. Side opposition seems to think that just because they are the same as groups, it's justified for them to go in. By logical extension, they're telling us that China can move into Taiwan, move into Hong Kong to support pro-Chinese groups. We don't think the ethnic lines is a justified reason for a country to move into another country and help them. But beyond that, we think that Russia is an especially problematic person to help in any way, because Russia doesn't really have a very good track record of helping people and having negotiations. Give you the example of the 2009 Russia-Ukraine gas problem, where Russia cut off natural gas to the whole region, causing $30 million of damages to themselves, just to deter Ukraine from having talks with the EU. We think that in this light, Russia is especially problematic person for having any useful negotiation or having any positive negotiation. So let's look at three things in today's debate. Firstly, the policy the side opposition seems to think they have. Secondly, on the idea of the justification. And thirdly, on long-term aids. So on the idea of policy, right? We think that we don't really have a problem with Crimea wanting to self-actualize, wanting to form their own country. The main problem we have is that Russia is in this country right now. We don't think it's justified for Russia to move in, no matter what side opposition wants to assert to us. Russia doesn't have a legitimate reason to go in. Given up this region Crimea to Ukraine in the past, it should stay with Ukraine. If these people really want to self-actualize, it's their own problems. We don't think that linguistic and cultural reasons is a good enough justification for them to move in. And we think that the biggest problem with Russia being there is that talks won't happen. Whatever negotiation the side opposition asserts to us that will happen probably won't happen anyway. Because Russia doesn't have a good track record of having negotiations in the past. We think that the presence of Russia in itself is really similar to gunboat diplomacy, where you have a big guy with a gun telling this person, hey, agree with me, I'll shoot you in the face. We think that the idea that they've moved in crack
troops is especially problematic. Removing the elite of your military in is already a big show of might. I think everything, especially in the light where the telco company in Crimea has lost their communications with the local Crimean troops on the floor. We think there's a big problem going on. We think there's a lot of things going on in Crimea that we don't know. I think the biggest problem is all the violence going on. Russia has its own agenda, has its own motives to be there. We don't think it's justified to allow Russia to continue. Yes, sir.
It's very nice that you want to allow Crimea to secede using democratic means. The last time they tried to do that, Kiev removed the ability to elect their own leaders and replaced them with ones that were appointed by Ukraine alone.
Yes, sir, but wouldn't you think that putting Russia in would just perpetuate a similar problem, where Russia is just pushing for a certain type of leader, pushing for a leader with a certain type of view? You're going to have the same problem anyway. We think that if South Sudan could succeed on its own independence, I think that if Crimea really wants to, in the long run, it can become an independent state. But we just don't think that Russia is the right way to become an independent state. We don't think it's right for Russia to be in there. On second point of justification, right? Now, here's why we're going to explain to you why we really need NATO in this case. I think that one of the biggest reason we need NATO is because Russia has moved itself in there. I think the point that Russia has put troops in, we think that because we don't know Russia's intentions, we think that because of Russia's previous track record of being highly unpredictable, highly violent, we need to put in a counteracting force in this case. We told you in our first two speakers that we're going to put in no-fly zones, put in troops. And we're only going to do so at the point that Russia pulls out. Because if we really want to help this country, really want to help this region, we don't think the use of violence by Russia is going to promote anything. It just cause more long-term conflicts in the future. Sure, you might solve the problem now, someone might be elected. But in the long term, if people don't solve this problem by themselves, they're not going to solve. These people are still going to have wars and violences in the future. We think that NATO is especially useful in this case because we think that bodies like the UN will not have any success rate at all. We think that the fact that Russia is in the permanent five will veto this immediately, which proves that NATO has no chance of success. I think the only time that NATO has succeeded in such big conflicts, like in the Korean War, is because Russia was boycotting the UN in the first place. Russia wasn't there to vote, and they were able to pass a resolution to continue. I think that NATO is a very impartial body. NATO wants to help them, and we don't think that NATO has any ulterior motive or any bad incentive to be there. But just to be there to help this region. Once they help this problem, NATO will pull out. We don't think it's a problem in this case. But I think in the case of Russia, where they are really moving troops, but Putin is trying to now convince the parliament to pass a bill to allow them to move more troops into the Crimea region. I think that is especially problematic in the case of opposition. So we think that the fact that Russia is moving even more and more troops as the day goes by, we think that is a problem for the country itself. Putting more troops in is only going to destabilize the region, cause more violence, cause more conflict in the long term. So let's look at thirdly the idea of long-term aims. What side proposition wants for this region? We don't think that NATO has any ulterior motives to turn this into some US proxy. What we're trying to do is to kick Russia out so this region can stabilize itself. We think that Russia's presence in there is especially problematic if they want to self-actualize, if they want to form their own country. Because the fact that you're going to have a big country pointing guns at you, pointing missiles at you, you can't make a proper decision. It's going to be bad for the country. Yes.
If Russia does pull out of this agreement, can you guarantee me that the current Ukrainian interim government will not use Crimea as a stronghold in terms of anti-Iranian convention?
So we don't think that this is especially a problem because there are existing measures in the current system to prevent people from hunting political opponents down. We don't think it's justified for you to say that Russia is in there just to protect one person. We think that the future of this region in itself is better for Russia to pull out now than for it to continue being there. Now back to the point of long-term aims. We think that the only way for this region to establish peace and peace in the long term is for Russia to pull out. For this area to solve its own problems, not for someone else to help it. Because we think that in the long term, if someone is going to be there to tell you what to do, how to solve your problems, they're not going to satisfy everyone. We think that in the long term, if people have talks by themselves, if they settle their own problems and their own differences, this ultimately leads to better resolution in the long term. So for stability of this region, please cite the proposition.
And the government with speaker for that speech. I'd now like to announce that the food is here. Sorry, I meant the food is halal.
Mr. Speaker, Mike.
Right, now I'd like to invite the opposition whip speaker.
Kids are pretty good. They focus. Okay. Problem. Two problems. One, they've got too many facts, and the problem with having too many facts is they didn't know where to park in those arguments. So at the end of the day, we really didn't know exactly what they wanted. In the beginning, when we questioned the Prime Minister, he was not fine with the idea of secession. He was not fine with the idea that the Crimea could actually necessarily secede because he wanted some forms of assimilation because of the Russian counterpart. And then the third guy in yellow comes and says, well, we're fine with secession, but we just don't want Russian involvement. But he has things to say about this. I really look at 4 issues. The first thing that needs to be, the white elephant in the room that needs to be addressed is secession, which is the ultimate political will of this debate. It started off from side opposition that never once went questioned by government. And because it never once went questioned by government, we will prove to you that everything else that they talked about in terms of harms that could be accrued doesn't justify why secession shouldn't happen. Secondly is the distortion of Russia's perception that they want to create in justifying why Russia should never be involved. And we've got historical precedences over the last quarter to justify why Russia intends to show massive amounts of restraint and change its perceptions, especially in the recent commitments it's made in the G8 summit. Thirdly, what is best for Ukraine? Because we have to balance the interests of all parties here. And lastly, whether Russia's involvement is ultimately necessary to ensure that no one gets stepped over in these equations. So first issue, the will of the people. Ruben spent 5 out of 7 minutes explaining to you why secession was essentially the ultimate goal of what the people want in Crimea, right? Because at the end of the day, regardless of the political affiliations of Ukraine and NATO and Russia, we all can agree that these people want secession. We've never heard from government why that was a bad thing to have without absent of NATO's involvement. Could we necessarily achieve secession with the interim government of the Ukraine necessarily having those political discourses, if that's such a word, without the involvement of NATO? Because NATO is also very politically affiliated, right? The US will not want to piss off Russia now based on its commitments of the G8 summit. You have to deal with the news as it is today. Therefore, we think secession is far harder with the involvement of NATO, and you distort the political will because there are 2 reasons for this. It becomes very difficult. But secondly, as we go along with the involvement of NATO, the actual will of the people gets diluted when you have a political deadlock between NATO, Ukraine, and Russia. Therefore, that's what's happened with the Kashmiri people in India and Pakistan. The will of the people in Kashmir generally gets diluted because governments generally have a political deadlock in these instances, and they are very highly likely to happen in the long run. Secondly, Russian perception. They've painted Putin and the Russian government as evil, antagonistic people that have ulterior motives. Fine. We seem to suggest on our side that based on the commitments of Putin and Obama to have far deeper talks in these scenarios have led to 2 assumptions, which are very, very tangible to this debate. One, it is very unlikely the US will be heavily involved in this NATO intervention because it will just be counterproductive. Second, why we think this is fundamentally problematic also is because Russia does not want to go back to the perception that it's had as this evil overarching force that predicates on its military might. So we don't think Russia wants to maintain those forms of perception, and we think we're fine with that. Thirdly, and this I think is the nature of the debate as well, because there's one stakeholder that we've heard nuances about. What is best for Ukraine? Number 1. Peaceful secession of Crimea means there's no form of antagonism that will necessarily exist. If you include NATO into the equation, in defense of Ukraine's stronghold on Crimea, you're essentially going to propagate antagonistic nuances from Russia. you have to question, without a proper form of governance in the Ukrainian system now, when they've got an interim government and they're in the midst of a transition, can they necessarily afford those types of political antagonisms that will come from Russia, considering they're also very trade interdependent with one another? Is this the best political move for the Ukraine to get those forms of assistance from NATO at the cost of those kinds of trade implications that will necessarily happen and political implications with Putin's government? This is not in the best interest of Ukraine as well. I'll take you guys later, I promise. But secondly, any proper form of political discourse with secession right now is not between the Ukrainian government with Putin. It's not between NATO and Putin. It's got to happen between Yanukovych and Poroshenko, because it has to be an internal decision for Ukraine to allow the Crimean people to secede. They seem to suggest all along the bench that for secession to happen, it needs to happen with the consent with consent of every single stakeholder. No, it needs to happen with the consent of the Ukrainian people. But can it happen at the expense of not having Russia in the equation? And this is where we think no. Why? Because Crimea is a stronghold of Yanukovych. You said this throughout the bench. Why is this relevant? Because if Russia pulls out, the Ukrainian government that is currently hunting Yanukovych will use Crimea as a batting ground to get him. The people are the ones that will necessarily suffer as you move along further and further down the line, especially with NATO in the mix. Crimea should never be used as a battering ground for political deadlocks, especially when the people don't want to get involved in the government's political nonsense. That's the problem with the status quo. Before 6 go ahead.
So, why would it? So, because Ukraine is in a state of political instability right now, it is okay for Russia to go in and grab the entire territory as its own. That's what you're saying. What?
We want secession. It's not about Russia grabbing the territory for its own. We want secession. That means the Hungarian people can form its own government. It can draw its own borders. It can decide for itself that it is a sovereign state, absent of any form of political intervention of the Ukrainian government and Russia as well. Nobody's dipping their hands into the cookie jar. That's what we want, one-side opposition. I think the line is getting about.
Thank the operator for that speech. Now to invite the Leader of Opposition, Ruben, to give the opposition reply speech. Here.
Yeah. I didn't have the chicken McGrill, so I got you guys McChicken.
Reply.
It has to be like up and down. It has to be up and down. Come on. Then it's
It's funny that we've never seen an evolution of the arguments coming out from side government. The entire stance was that Russia is the big bad guy in this debate, in Crimea, and it's invading them, and therefore it's illegitimate, and by extension, NATO must intervene. Let's talk about the first issue, which dominated the bulk of discussion. Now, I'll talk about the other issues which we presented, was never responded to. Is Russia's presence in Crimea legitimate and does it warrant intervention? They said no. Russia is the quintessential big bad wolf. They are the foreign invaders, and nobody wants them there. False. For a few reasons. First, Crimea has been trying to secede for decades. Something I established very early on in my little speech. Tried to do so in the past, but when he had the ability to elect its own leaders. What was Ukraine's response then? It removed the ability to elect its own leaders. It suppressed the democratic rights of Crimea. as a result, in an attempt to suppress its demands for secession. While we weren't really sure whether Tsai government was okay with secession or not, because of the inconsistency between DPM and Gov. Wait, let's assume that they do want secession, and it is a good thing, right? It is legitimate. Moreover, we argue that Russia has had a long-standing military affiliation with Crimea. It has a legitimate reason for military presence there. Its entire Black Sea Fleet is based in the Crimean capital of Sevastopol. Right? It's had that arrangement for a long time, and Crimea was a territory of Russia in the past for like 200 years. So it's okay if Russians are there. Moreover, the word that they use, invasion, implies that it occurred without consent. That is not true. What is a more accurate situation is that a region called upon a military ally in order to lend aid to function as the bastion of liberty and freedom. The elected leaders that overthrew the previous leaders appointed by Kiev called upon Russia. Why now? Because they lost faith in the Ukrainian government. Now that Yanukovych was no longer there, they believed that no one would fight for the interests of Crimea. Yeah? So that's why they want to secede. That's why it's legitimate for Russia to be there. And they do have a good reason for doing so. We don't think NATO intervention really is necessary. The next response, oh, Russia wants to claim Crimea for its own. Wait, they have never done that. When they invaded Georgia and claimed South Ossetia, right? Ossetia, they eventually gave it autonomous status, allowed them to elect their own leaders, provided aid to them. Why? Because South Ossetia wanted to secede from Georgia, wanted its own autonomous region. We argue that this will be the same pattern of behavior with regards to Crimea, therefore there won't be an issue there. But let's look at the other arguments that we presented throughout the debate, because somehow this first issue was where the debate remains slightly. We showed you why it's in the best interest for Ukraine. In order for Ukraine to move forward, it needs to remove or distance itself from Yanukovych. Right? It needs to distance itself from Yanukovych. And when Crimea is a stronghold of pro-Yanukovych politicians, stronghold is a strong supporter of Yanukovych, ultimately, the forced retention of Crimea will cause far greater socio-political strife with Ukraine moving forward. That's something they don't want to do. That's why it's not in the interest for Ukraine to call upon NATO to fight in its cause, right? It's far better to allow for peaceful secession. More than that, it's not in NATO's interest either, right? That's why they refuse to lock horns with Russia in the past, because they want to avoid full-blown out war. They want to avoid a return to Cold War era relations. Moreover, it will cause far greater instability both with Ukraine in long term as well as in the EU. Leave the Crimeans alone. Let's ultimately stop any form of intervention. Let's have peace.
I thank Ruben for the opposition reply speech. Now to end the debate, I'd like to invite the Prime Minister to return to the stand for the government reply.
So on opposition side, for peaceful secession, for us to leave Ukrainians alone, we must start by having military presence out of nowhere for no particular good reason. And we see that's really abhorrent, the status quo, right? Because all the time, we never like intervention of another country's sovereignty. We never accepted the idea of military intervention within another country. And that's why, of course, the speaker, we've always said, our policy is pretty clear. We don't want external influence. We want to get you out. If they want to succeed, they can. Just like my POI, we said Sevastopol succeeded with 8% of population wanting to see. This can happen insofar as people decide for themselves without putting that at gunpoint. My third speaker has mentioned this idea. This was consistent throughout government bench. We think this is very clear, right? So let's discuss the two main issues that came out in today's debate. Firstly, on the justification for intervention. Secondly, with regards to Ukrainian peace prospects. So firstly, on the issue of justification for intervention. Some opposition has just mentioned that, oh, cultural linguistic reason and the historical ties to sufficient justification for us to intervene, right? But these gentlemen give many examples: Hong Kong, Taiwan, China, can they just go and take the countries for themselves? We think it's highly problematic because we understand these countries do deserve the right to decide on their own. Even for Philippines, where it's a more national liberation foundation, but they can continue to do this through diplomacy. We do not see the need for military presence. That is why within our policy, we really advocate 2 prongs. As far as possible, we do it through diplomacy. If they fail, if diplomacy fails, then we do action. We take action in military, we minimize collateral damage. There's no overwhelming harm on our side. We think that this characterizes the problem by claiming that we'll escalate the all right civil war, right? Because we've seen successes that explain in Libya and Kosovo. When a no-fly zone is established, we think it really just stabilizes the situation. We think throughout all 3 speakers on the government, we explain how this policy works, because it's really just giving Ukrainians the free way to decide on their own after external influence is removed. If they want to succeed, why not? Ladies and gentlemen, here then comes. We have already explained the problem on onset from Prime Minister. When the crack troops, where your elites, where your commandos are inside a foreign country, capturing key installations and killing people, we think that is when there's problem, there's comparative harm in the long run, right? Firstly, they never shown us what exactly is the harm, besides from a possible civil war that we've really demolished, because we have said it's really a stabilizing policy. But comparing the harms of intervening in the country in the short run versus, comparing the harms of intervening versus the harms of stabilizing, we think there's no harm for us, because we think on this issue, there's a greater problem on side of opposition model. Moreover, all examples of how Ukraine are unable to succeed, right? Based on full government, the new interim government is able to allow them to succeed. We think that probabilistically, perhaps it can happen, perhaps it will not. But most importantly, we are just fundamentally against the idea of a state using military action against another state to further its own political interests. We think the Deputy Prime Minister as well as the government will further this idea sufficiently. So moving on to the last issue of idea of future peace prospects. We think future peace prospects are possible, because ultimately countries can negotiate. Countries do not have to turn to military action. My second speaker, the Deputy Prime Minister, has already explained how this has a negative precedent, where you can easily infringe territorial sovereignty by idea of there's a cultural linguistic group. Therefore, because somehow territorial lines in the past were drawn in a certain way, we can invade. We think territorial lines are always redrawn, but we do not see the need for military presence. We do not see the need for lives to be lost. And that's really the key premise of side government, because we recognize that sovereignty is important. It's key for respect and cooperation with the international community. We think on all these arguments, because we're showing you a justification for intervention, why NATO is the best person to do so, why in terms of future peace process for Ukraine, they should decide for themselves without being put at gunpoint. We think side government takes
Thank you, teams, for the debate. Please cross the floor, shake hands, see your burgers and fries. Please wait in the halls. Results will be announced shortly.
Yeah, there's a doubles.
Spicy.
No, there's no doubles spicy. Yeah, spicy. So there's spicy over there.
Then how gets all again?
Yeah.
Hungry. Yeah, your drink will be sent to you later.
But I didn't put the names, I just put
Whoever needs a bride, collect it from you should have. Right. Oh. Anyone else? Andrews, don't take long. We need to start the round shortly.